She had just suffered a heartbreaking loss in Cincinnati. Her dream run was over. And then something unexpected happened. The tournament owner reached out with an invitation that stunned the entire tennis world. Ben Navarro, the billionaire who invested $260 million into transforming the Cincinnati Open, didn't just watch Eala's historic run from the stands. He personally invited her back for the semifinals. And her response left everyone speechless. The 21-year-old Filipina sensation had packed the 11,614-seat stadium with Philippine flags, turned the tournament into a homecoming, and driven ticket prices to $1,000 on the resale market. Sam Querrey had noted that the average ticket price on center court for Eala's match against Anisimova was $160 higher per ticket compared to 2 nights earlier. Now, the tournament owner was making sure she knew exactly what she meant to his event. The invitation came just hours after Eala's 4-6, 6-4, 6-2 to world number 10 Amanda Anisimova. The match had been a roller coaster. Eala had taken the first set 6-4, survived a 20-minute marathon game that tested both players' endurance, and stormed to a 2-0 lead in the decider. But Anisimova fought back, winning the final 6 games of the match to seal the victory. The loss denied Eala a milestone 10th career win over a top 10 opponent, dropping her record to 9-5 overall against the world's elite. But Navarro saw something beyond the scoreline. The billionaire owner, whose daughter Emma was also competing in the tournament, had been watching the Filipina phenomenon unfold all week. He had seen the 30-minute sellouts, the thousands of Philippine flags that turned the Lindner Family Tennis Center into a homecoming, and the fans who had paid $1,000 just to watch her play. It's kind of funny because she's younger than me, but I feel like she has the fan base and she's carrying the crowd. Felix Auger-Aliassime would later say, capturing what the tennis world was beginning to understand. Now, Navarro wanted Eala to know that the Cincinnati Open would always welcome her. The invitation to return for the semifinals wasn't just about watching tennis. It was about honoring the movement she had created. It was about acknowledging that a 21-year-old from Quezon City had turned his $260 million investment into the most talked-about story of the tournament. And Eala's response? It stunned everyone. The Filipina sensation, who had just walked off the court after one of the toughest losses of her season, didn't let the heartbreak define her. She accepted the invitation with the same grace that had made her a national hero. And in doing so, she proved that her connection to the tournament and to its billionaire owner was about more than just one match. She had packed the 11,614-seat stadium with Philippine flags. She had turned the tournament into a homecoming. And when Ben Navarro watched the Filipino wave sweep across his $260 million investment, he knew exactly what he was witnessing. The billionaire owner of the Cincinnati Open had built a stage for tennis legends. He never expected that its biggest star would be a 21-year-old from Quezon City. Navarro's journey to becoming the owner of one of tennis's most prestigious tournaments was anything but ordinary. The former Citigroup banker co-founded Sherman Financial Group in 1998, building it into a credit card and debt collection empire, with assets including the Las Vegas-based lender Credit One. His net worth sits at approximately $3.2 billion. When he purchased the Cincinnati Open from the USTA in 2022, he acquired one of the most valuable properties in sports, a license for one of the 6 combined top-level events in tennis outside the Grand Slams. But the decision to keep the tournament in Mason, Ohio, was a gamble that stunned the tennis world. Charlotte, a growing city triple the size of Cincinnati, had a proposal. Chicago, a huge tennis market, held obvious potential. Instead, Navarro doubled down on Mason, a city of just 36,000 people, best known for roller coasters. He invested $260 million into renovating and expanding the Lindner Family Tennis Center, covering around half the cost himself. The tournament grounds grew from 20 acres to over 40 acres. 13 new courts were added, including a 2,300-seat sunken stadium, a 56,000-square-foot clubhouse, a 53,000-square-foot indoor tennis center, and an operations center transformed the facility into one of the most player-friendly venues on tour. The gamble paid off. In 2025, the Cincinnati Open set a new attendance high of more than 285,000 fans. Tournament director Bob Moran told the Sports Business Journal that the event was on pace to draw easily over 300,000 in 2026. The tournament had been named ATP Masters 1000 Tournament of the Year following its stunning transformation. But the real test was about to come. The tournament, that had grown from 1 week to 12 days, from 56 player draws to 96, was ready for its new star. And when Alex Eala arrived, she didn't just play matches. She turned the Lindner Family Tennis Center into a cultural phenomenon. The 30-minute sellouts, the Philippine flags that filled every section, the chants of Laban, Alex, that echoed past midnight. Navarro had never seen anything like it. Ticket inquiries reached 80% of all requests. The resale market spiked to $1,000. What would you do if a $260 million stadium was built for players like you? For Alex Eala, the answer was simple. She would step onto the court and prove that the investment was worth every dollar. Because she knew that Navarro wasn't just watching her, he was watching the future of tennis unfold before his eyes. And that future would look remarkably Filipina. The match was over. The dream run in Cincinnati was finished. But as Alex Eala walked off the court at the Lindner Family Tennis Center, she carried something more valuable than a victory. The knowledge that she had earned the respect of one of the sport's most dangerous players. I know Alex is such a great player and such a fighter. I knew it was going to be a really tough match. Amanda Anisimova's words, spoken in her post-match interview, captured exactly what the tennis world had witnessed in the 2-hour, 28-minute battle that stretched past midnight. The American had just survived a match that featured a 20-minute marathon game, a first-set loss, and a comeback that required every ounce of her fighting spirit. But instead of gloating, she paid tribute to the woman who had pushed her to the brink. There was quite a bit of support for me tonight, so I really appreciate that, because I know how loved Alex is, and for good reason. The words were a balm for the Filipino fans who had packed the 11,614-seat stadium, stayed past midnight, and waved their flags until their arms ached. They had watched their hero take the first set 6-4, survive the marathon fifth game, and storm to a 2-0 lead in the decider. They had seen her fight through exhaustion, ankle pain, and the weight of a nation's expectations. And even though she had lost the final 6 games of the match, they knew she had given everything she had. For Anisimova, the victory was about more than just advancing to the next round. I'm really proud of this performance, actually, for being able to find a way and push myself there in the middle of the match, she said. I'm really happy with the way I was able to find my tennis and start fighting. It was a really, really tough match, and credit to her, she was really playing some great tennis. The match itself was a testament to Eala's growth. Just months earlier, she had been struggling through the final qualifying rounds of Grand Slams, ranked outside the top 100, and still searching for her breakthrough. Now, she was pushing a 2-time Grand Slam finalist and former world number 3 to the limit on one of the biggest stages in tennis. The loss denied Eala a 10th career victory over a top 10 opponent, dropping her record to 9-5 against the world's elite. But it also proved that she belonged among them. And when Ben Navarro reached out with his invitation, Eala knew that her Cincinnati run had meant more than just a win-loss record. The billionaire owner had seen the 30-minute sellouts, the thousands of Philippine flags that turned his $260 million investment into a homecoming, and the fans who had paid $1,000 just to watch her play. He had watched her fight through exhaustion, push a former world number 3 to the brink, and carry the hopes of a nation on her shoulders. And he knew that the heartbreak of defeat would not define her. When Eala accepted the invitation to return for the semifinals, she proved that her connection to Cincinnati was about more than just one match. The 21-year-old from Quezon City had turned the Cincinnati Open into a cultural phenomenon. She had filled the stadium with Philippine flags, driven ticket prices through the roof, and shown the tennis world that the Eala effect was about more than just winning. It was about a community that had found its voice. And a tournament owner who had noticed. What would you do if a billionaire tournament owner invited you back after a loss? For Alex Eala, the answer was already clear. She would accept with grace. She would show up. And she would prove that the heartbreak of Cincinnati was just the beginning of a story that was far from over, because she knew that the invitation wasn't about the loss. It was about the movement. The 11,614-seat stadium had been transformed. The Philippine flags filled every section. The chants of "Laban! Alex!" echoed past midnight. And Ben Navarro, the billionaire who had invested $260 million into the tournament, was watching it all unfold from his courtside seat. He knew the movement he was witnessing could not be ignored. The scenes at the Lindner Family Tennis Center were unlike anything the Cincinnati Open had ever experienced. Filipino fans had descended on Mason, Ohio, in numbers that stunned even the most seasoned tournament organizers. They had driven 8 hours from Toronto after watching Eala there. They had planned entire college reunions around her matches. They had paid $1,000 on the resale market just to get a seat. The statistics were staggering. According to Sam Querrey, the average ticket price on center court for Eala's match against Amanda Anisimova was $160 higher compared to 2 nights earlier. The tournament had been forced to move her matches to larger venues to accommodate the demand. Ticket inquiries reached 80% of all requests. One tournament director confirmed that spectators were coughing up about $1,000 in the resale market just to get a seat. But it wasn't just about the money. The Filipino community had turned a tennis tournament into a cultural event. Families who had never attended a tennis match before packed the stands. The flags, the chants, the energy. It was all part of a phenomenon that had begun in Washington, exploded in Toronto, and now arrived in Cincinnati. The tournament director at the Canadian Open had already described it as unprecedented. Even Eala's opponents had come to expect it. "I know Alex is such a great player and such a fighter," Anisimova said after her victory. "There was quite a bit of support for me tonight, so I really appreciate that, because I know how loved Alex is." And for good reason. Felix Auger-Aliassime, who would soon partner with Eala in mixed doubles at the US Open, had already acknowledged the power of the phenomenon. "It's a great opportunity to feel what it's like to have that Eala effect and her fan base behind me," the world number 4 told the Tennis Channel. "It's kind of funny because she's younger than me, but I feel like she has the fan base and she's carrying the crowd." When Ben Navarro extended his invitation to Eala, he wasn't just being polite. He was recognizing that the Filipino wave had transformed his tournament in ways that no amount of construction could replicate. The $260 million renovation had expanded the Lindner Family Tennis Center from 20 to 40 acres, added 13 new courts, and built a state-of-the-art clubhouse. But it was a 21-year-old from Quezon City who had brought it to life. What would you do if a community of thousands showed up just to see you play? For Alex Eala, the answer was already clear. She would give them everything she had. She would fight for every point. And she would prove that the girl with ruffled socks and light-up shoes belonged on the biggest stages in the world. The Filipino wave had arrived in Cincinnati, and Ben Navarro, the billionaire who had built the stage, was determined to make sure she knew she was always welcome. The invitation had been extended. The response had stunned everyone. And as Alex Eala prepared to leave Cincinnati for New York, she carried with her something far more valuable than a victory. The knowledge that she had earned a place in the heart of a tournament owner who had built a $260 million stage for tennis legends. Ben Navarro had invested everything into the Cincinnati Open. He had doubled down on Mason, Ohio, a city of just 36,000 people, when Charlotte and Chicago had courted him with bigger markets and brighter lights. He had covered half the cost of a $260 million renovation that expanded the Lindner Family Tennis Center from 20 to 40 acres, adding 13 new courts, a 2,300-seat sunken stadium, and a state-of-the-art clubhouse. The tournament had been named ATP Masters 1000 Tournament of the Year. And yet, Navarro knew that the real story of the 2026 Cincinnati Open wasn't the new stadiums or the record attendance. It was the 21-year-old from Quezon City who had filled every seat with Philippine flags and turned his tournament into a cultural phenomenon. The statistics were undeniable. Ticket inquiries had reached 80% of all requests. The average ticket price for Eala's match against Amanda Anisimova was $160 higher compared to 2 nights earlier. Filipino fans had driven 8 hours from Toronto, planned college reunions, and paid $1,000 on the resale market just to watch her play. And when she walked off the court after her 4-6, 6-4, 6-2 loss, the stadium that had been packed to capacity didn't empty. It applauded. Navarro had seen enough to know that he wanted her back. His invitation to Eala wasn't just a courtesy. It was a recognition that the Eala effect had transformed his tournament in ways that no amount of construction could replicate. The billionaire owner, whose daughter Emma was also competing in the tournament, understood that the Filipino community had turned the Cincinnati Open into something bigger than tennis. And he wanted Eala to know that she would always be welcome. The 21-year-old Filipina, for her part, responded with characteristic grace. She accepted the invitation with the same humility that had made her a national hero. And in doing so, she proved that her connection to Cincinnati was about more than just one match. It was about a movement that had taken over the tennis world. What would you do if a billionaire tournament owner personally invited you back after a loss? For Alex Eala, the answer was already clear. She would accept with grace, she would show up. And she would prove that the heartbreak of Cincinnati was just the beginning of a story that was far from over. "It's a crazy experience, so I'm just trying to take it all in," she had said of her growing popularity. "I know also that I wouldn't be having these experiences if I didn't do all the work that I did beforehand. So I know that I won't continue to experience it if I don't continue that work." Now, as she prepared for the US Open, she carried with her the knowledge that she had already made history. Not just on the court, but in the hearts of everyone who had watched her play. The US Open had prepared for her arrival, but they had no idea what was coming next.